Hello, and thank you for choosing to watch this video. What If Model Kits Part 11. This is a series of videos that look at imaginary model kits that I wish had been around when I was growing up in the 1970s and 80s. The Q1 from the Hammer film, The Quass Experiment. The BBC Quatermass serials were hugely popular on television in the 1950s, and Hammer films made feature films of each of these serials. The horrific and fascinating Quatermass Experiment, the unnerving Quatermass 2, and Quatermass in the Pit is just stunning. Hammer used the spelling to highlight the horrific X-rated nature of this film. The Q1 rocket ship features heavily at the start of the story, but is only partially seen. There is another Q rocket shown briefly at the end of the film, and the bottom half seems identical to what we've seen of Q1. So I reference this ship to complete the full view of what I imagine Q1 might have looked like. It is a classic silver V2-like rocket ship and will be a pretty simple kit. In 1/4/4 scale, the same scale as the other Airfix rockets, it would stand about 9 or 10 inches tall. It would have to be made out of the silvery, swirly plastic. Life Force is a 1985 horror film featuring vampire-like aliens who come to Earth. The film opens with the European space mission of the HMS Churchill, or the Winston Churchill, investigating Halley's Comet. The space shuttle is an original design based on the contemporary orbiter, although it appears to be about 20% longer and has canard wings at the front, and it actually has a big motor in the bottom of it. I did this as a Revell kit. Revell did a series of kits from the 1984 movie of June, and with all the sort of spaceships and space shuttles that Revell did, this would be a great candidate for them. Life Force was a bit of a throwback, depicting aliens in the way that you would see in countless 1950s horror films, in trying to invade Earth and take over. In the 1980s, a lot of the aliens were friendly and harmless, none more so than E.T. and Steven Spielberg's masterpiece, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. The ship in this film carried a small crew of the 3-foot-tall E.T.s to various planets. The ship was designed by Ralph McQuarrie and has lots of moving features. A kit in 1/72 scale would be maybe 14 inches tall and could be an interesting model with lots of opportunities for moving parts. The spaceship had retractable tripod landing gear and an entrance ramp, and the pod thrusters around the perimeter of it fold out when it comes into land. I'm actually not sure if these are jets or lights. Doesn't really matter. They look cool either way. The top of the ship is very shiny chrome, and it reflects the environment around it. So given the 80s, they might have been bold enough to have actually molded this in chrome plastic, maybe in 3 parts or more, and the rest of the hull in black or grey plastic. This would have been a fun kit. There'd been a handful of films made where the aliens were non-threatening, but it was probably really Close Encounters of the Third Kind really sort of set the tone of how aliens would be depicted in films for the next few years. Close Encounters is based on a series of UFO sightings and alien investigations, and builds from Close Encounters of the First Kind, which is sightings, through Close Encounters of the Second Kind, evidence, to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is contact. The film features a number of UFOs, and of course the alien mothership, which is seen at the climax of the film. Incredible, awesome stuff. The end of the 1970s brought a number of giant spaceships to the screen, intricate designs and highly detailed models. The Cygnus from the Black Hole, the Enterprise in Star Trek The Motion Picture, Battlestar Galactica from Battlestar Galactica, and the Star Destroyers in Star Wars. There were kits of all of these with varying degrees of success, but the mothership was the one that was missing. Probably because it would have been a pretty awful kit, given all the details and probes and everything. It would have to be a decent size to make that look kind of halfway decent. But if it was in like 1/600th, which is sort of a standard battleship scale of the time, I think you could make something that would be pretty good. Certainly enough that if it had existed and you'd bought it, you could have kind of super detailed it and had some fun really making it look good. But as with the Cygnus, the ship is really sort of made by the lighting. Plastic model kit lighting in those days was limited at best. The mothership looked massive on screen, and in reality, I think the model was 5 feet across from tip to tip of the probes. But it looks amazing. Here's a little segue. Speaking of the Cygnus, Maximilian Schell played Commander Hans Reinhardt in that film, and he also appeared as the captain of the ship in a movie called Krakatoa East of Java, which is a film that used to be shown a lot on television here in the UK on bank holidays. It sort of fit the criteria that they seem to have for films that were over 2 hours, so I'd fill a good time slot, and were in 70mm, so we're always respectable on TV. It's a sort of a lavish production, co-produced by Cinerama, and it's sort of part adventure, part thriller, part soapy melodrama, part Jules Verne-esque adventure, part disaster film. It's kind of a little bit of everything, and probably, jack of all trades, master of none. And all the action is centered on the ship, which is captained by Maximilian Schell's character, which is the Batavia Queen, which is sort of a 1900s era steamship. They got out of a real ship for the movie and embellished it with, I think they added or enlarged the funnel, the smokestack. They added sails to it and a few other sort of bits and pieces. It's actually pretty interesting. It's a cool looking ship. I made this an NPC kit. Although specialising in car kits, they did venture into fantasy a little bit in the 60s with some kits based on the Disneyland Pirates of the Caribbean ride. And because NPC did the Black Hole kits and because of the Maximilian Schell connection, I thought, let's make this an NPC kit. Why not? If you get a chance, check the movie out. As I said, it's just a mishmash of things. Some great effects in it, some great miniature effects. Another terrific movie sort of set in a similar era was The Time Machine, made by George Pell in 1960. And this is a bona fide classic sci-fi movie. It's a real gem. It takes the H.G. Wells novel and actually turns it into a really entertaining and surprisingly sort of rich film, but probably most famous for the design of the time machine itself, which is just absolutely tremendous. It's right up there with the Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's a great looking machine with its crystal control knob that he uses to travel through time, the disc that spins around the back. It just looks, high tech yet of the time, and just looks like it works. And Rod Taylor's just so charming and appealing. This would be a 1/12 scale kit. In the film, Rod Taylor's character does a demonstration of the time machine with a tabletop model, which is 12th scale. So this kit would be the same size as that model. It'd have to come with a time traveler figure in it. You'd have to provide your own cigar if you wanted to make it look like the experimental one. And the prop itself, I believe, still exists. It's been restored several times over the years, and it shows up in the movie Gremlins alongside Robbie the Robot and Steven Spielberg in a little cameo scene there. Speaking of Aurora, obviously they did TV and movie tie-ins of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and the other Irwin Allen stuff. An Irwin Allen film that isn't really remembered too much is a film called 5 Weeks in a Balloon, based on a Jules Verne story, and it involves this sort of powered hot air balloon called the Jupiter, which has this really interesting sort of gondola underneath there. And it's a classic Irwin Allen film with a big cast and daring do and various sort of adventures as they travel around in this balloon. It didn't have the same success as The Lost World or Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, but it's a good kids' matinee film, and the balloon looks pretty cool. In doing this painting, I realised how much of the painting and how much of a kit would be taken up with the balloon itself. So to have this be a decent sized kit, maybe a foot tall, the gondola part, the interesting part would be, only sort of 2 or 3 inches of that, which would be, a little bit underwhelming probably. So maybe this is why there aren't really any kits of hot air balloons or even something this unique. So I did the second version, which would be much more of a kind of classic Aurora kit that would just be the hard body part of it, if you like. The balloon would not be included, but the gondola and that whole arrangement would be there, and you'd be able to take off part of the hull so you could see sort of inside it to where the engineer works and all the rest of it. So that would have been a fun kit in 1/64th scale, which I believe is the scale they say that the Spindrift and the Flying Sub were in. So just to add to the Irwin Allen collection. Aurora did lots and lots of kits, and they did sci-fi vehicles, the dinosaurs, of course, and they did monsters. And I think growing up watching the old Universal movies on TV, there was a certain, level of threat that as a kid you got from that. they were scary. And I remember watching, Scooby-Doo as a kid. They'd have some quite scary, creatures that they would encounter in that show, in the context of it. They were done sort of straight. And one of the more memorable was the glowing deep-sea diver who appears in the Ghost of Captain Cutler story. And I just thought wouldn't it have been fun if Aurora had sort of had a couple of these Scooby-Doo villains, monsters, in their glows-in-the-dark monster series, and Diver being a great one because he did glow, and maybe as a kit the whole thing would be glow-in-the-dark plastic, and then just maybe the seaweed draped across him, and the sort of base that he would inevitably stand on would be regular plastic or something. Given how, as a youngster, how scary some of those characters were, I thought it'd be fun as an Aurora kit. Scooby-Doo was the jewel in the crown, I think, of the Hanna-Barbera productions, influenced so many of their other shows. But another classic show was the Wacky Races, which had a spin-off, 2 spin-offs in fact, Perils of Penelope Pitstop and Dastardly and Muttley in their flying machines. It was set in the First World War, clearly, because they were Dick Dastardly and this sort of ragtag little team were assigned the job of trying to stop the homing pigeons that were used. Basic premise. But in each episode, they would have to come up with some unique plan to try and stop the pigeon. And this is one of my favourite planes from the show, this sort of big baseball bat plane. And there are all sorts of things. There's one with an anvil on it. But I just thought this would be a fun kit. And given Wingnut Wings were very popular with their World War I planes, and I thought it'd be fun if we actually took one of these over-the-top designs from Dastardly and Muttley and sort of put it in a Wingnut Wings, very detailed, very sophisticated kit box. In this painting, the plane is a little bit adapted. I mean, the shape is the same, but I added a few more details to it than they did in their sort of cartoon drawing. And because by all accounts, the Wingnut Wings kits were some of the best kits ever made, and just thought it'd be neat if the Dastardly and Muttley stuff at a Wingnut Wings box would be a nice way to do that. It occurs to me that there's a lot of references in this video and some of the other videos to old kits and kit manufacturers, and there are some excellent videos about the older kit companies on MaxModels channel, so definitely go check it out. That about wraps it up for this one. Thank you very much for watching. As always, please leave comments. I'll try and reply to all that I can. If you have any questions, drop those in the comments too. If you want to see more artwork, please visit the website. If you want to buy some artwork, please visit the website. And more videos coming soon. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.